You were going to get to see me twice today, but now it's only once. I know. All right, we have our guest speaker is Erik Christian from HR Fit. Making workplaces better has been his passion for more than 20 years. That passion led him to start HR Fit, a human resources consulting firm dedicated to making workplaces great through great HR. The HR Fit team pride themselves as positive thinking, client-focused, and solution-oriented professionals. They serve as trusted partners, providing clients with guidance and support through complex work problems and difficult situations. His work has spanned a variety of workplaces and industries, union, non-union, public, private, local, nationwide. Each of these experiences has bolstered his proficiency in coaching managers and HR professionals and crafting strategies for both individual and organizational success. He holds a Master's of Public Administration from the University of Illinois, Springfield, and a Bachelor of Science in Public Administration from Augustana College. He believes working with client leaders has provided the best education he's ever received. Please welcome Erik Christian.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And do I have 2 hours or 3 hours?
3.5.
Old speaker joke. Thank you everybody for having me this afternoon. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to be in such a friendly room. You talk about talking to a friendly audience. Rotary is a friendly audience. You guys are a nice group to be in front of. I appreciate the opportunity here. As she said, my name is Erik Christian. I am with HR Fit. We're a human resources consultancy based right here in Peoria, Illinois. Clients throughout the United States. I appreciate you all coming to spend the time here today to hear a presentation about HR. Usually that sends people going the opposite direction, right? But you have decided to spend your part of your afternoon here, so I appreciate it. Let's talk a little bit about why you should listen to me in HR Fit. Well, I think Don took care of that, right? I do HR stuff. Maybe we'll talk about it at the end if we've got a little bit more time. Here's what we're going to cover today, though. First, we're going to talk about what is HR, right? What is human resources? I want to give you some news you can use. So we're also going to talk a little bit about current workforce trends you can take away from here. If we got some time at the end, we'll talk about HR Fit if you're really interested. Let's go ahead and jump into this thing. So this is a little bit of audience participation, and to encourage that, for the first 3 folks who provide an answer to the question, what is human resources, I've got this HR branded 3-in-1 charger. You can charge an iPhone, you can charge an Android, you can charge a micro USB all at the same time. It's our part to try to ensure domestic tranquility wherever we can. This will change your life. Okay? So, for my first 3 folks who are brave enough to answer, I would love to know, what is HR? Anybody who's got one? Yes.
People.
People. Ooh, can I ask you just a little bit more? What does people mean?
People who work for you.
People who work for you. Humans, in other words, right? Yes, good. That's good. Another one? Leah?
The resources that handle benefits, grievances, and so on.
Good. All those folks who handle all the things around those people who are doing our work, right? And I thought I saw one more hand back here.
I was going to say employee issues and hiring, but also payroll.
Payroll, yep. The folks who get them paid. Thank you, sir. That's a big one. Anybody else have any other they'd like to share? I do have other stuff you can have. Those are all good things, right? Because HR is a number of things to different people. HR might be the rules police, right? I have one client who refers to me lovingly as No Fun Erik. Here comes No Fun Erik, everybody. Right? But that's what a lot of people think is like, oh, HR is here, which means like work will not be fun, work is not supposed to be good, right? And they wait till they leave and then say what they really want to say. HR is payroll, like we said, right? HR certainly can be that. We see that about 50-50 between payroll and finance. It really kind of depends more on how you're set up, but that can be a big part of it, payroll, benefits, etc. HR is the principal's office, right? Anybody ever heard the like, look, I will send you to HR. I will do it. I will get them down, right? You don't want that. I will say, as an aside, we in HR, especially at HR Fit, we discourage that kind of talk. Not because we don't want to be the heavy. You just take that on when you're going to be in HR. You know you're going to have to do it. But if a manager is sitting here saying to a problem employee, somebody who's not following the rules, not treating everybody else with respect, whatever it might be, if they're saying, look, you better fix this or I will go get HR and they will make life miserable, what's that manager really telling the employee? I'm going to take a guess. They don't have the authority. There you go. They don't have the authority. You don't have to listen to me, your boss, right? But you need to listen to HR. And so they're eroding and undermining their own authority. Like, it's not pushing to HR, it's the other way. HR should be coming in to help you lead, right? That's the role they should be serving. HR is a crying shoulder. The doctor is in, right? And so, rather than desk chairs, we should have a therapist couch because the employees got lots they want to share. Okay. We want to engage with employees. They are people. They bring their whole selves to work and we want to help them. But at the same time, this is work, right? And so sometimes we have to help folks understand that. Ultimately, what we're trying to get at and where HR serves best is when HR is a trusted business partner for the organization. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means, but when HR lives here, it does good things for everybody. There's a textbook definition for you. Human resources management focuses on actively advancing and improving an organization's workforce to improve the organization itself. So they're trying to align the people, the workforce, towards the organization to then improve the organization to advance their mission. What does it start to look like? Well, there's a number of different areas in there. Compliance and risk management, certainly, right? What not to say, right? And that list kind of grows longer every year. What not to say, how not to do it. But keep in mind, that's the floor, right? That is the, how do we treat people decently? How do we not get sued so we don't go out of business? That is not the ceiling, right? We should be building up from there. Talent acquisition and retention. How do we get people in here and how do we keep them, right? Folks who have been in the workforce long enough probably know pay is important, right? Pay will get them in the door. It's not going to keep them in the door, all right? So that retention part, there's a lot that goes into that, and that's where HR really should be helping. Employee development and training, that can look like any number of things. Your classic sit and get training, it could be coaching, it could be team facilitations. There's a number of ways that it could go. But it really should be focusing on what does my workforce need? How am I getting them there, right? Career pathing, maybe even succession planning. Then we start to get into some of the higher level stuff around strategic and organizational planning. What is your people plan? Who do you need in your organization to do what? How are you going to get them? Maybe something just as simple as, are you going to hire in kind of towards the bottom of the experience and pay level and try to grow your own? Or do we need that person with that skill set right now and we're going to pay top dollar? Either one of those could work. Maybe it's a mix, right? But leaders need to think through that, and they need to align that towards their overall mission. Workplace culture development. We say at HR Fit that HR should be the keepers of the culture, right? Workplace culture starts with the leader, right? The CEO, the president, whoever it is, they are setting the tone, absolutely. They should be pushing that down through their leadership. That should come out to the employees. HR, though, should be the ones who are supporting all of that. Right? They're helping the leaders lead in a way that they hold the employees accountable to the culture. They should be holding the leaders accountable to the culture. And if you're the ones who's holding everybody accountable, you need to be setting the standard, right? You need to be beyond reproach. You need to make sure that you are modeling the behavior that you want. So workplace culture development is an incredibly important part. So all this stuff, any organization, these are some of the basics of what HR might be doing, should be doing. But why does HR really matter? Why really have an HR, a human resources department that's focused on, or someone who is assigned these things? Two parts of this equation. Number one, your work matters. What you do matters. There are folks in here in this room who are nonprofits. You have a mission-driven organization. You're trying to solve a particular problem, serve a need, right? So you have a mission. We've got private sector employers in here. Maybe you're service-driven. Your goal, your mission, is to try to make somebody else's life better out there. Certainly you're trying to make a profit. You've got to do that to stay in business. But no margin, no mission, right? If you're not in the black and you're not operating like you should, you can't do all this other stuff that you want. So let's say you're a private sector and you're out there and you are trying to make something and put that into the world that's gonna make life easier, better, whatever it might be. So your work certainly matters, and it matters to the folks that work for you, if nothing else. You're providing them with a paycheck and a way to sustain themselves, their livelihood. And that's the other side of that equation. Your people matter, right? Think about, I'm not the first one to say this, think about how much time we spend working, right? How much time you are around those folks. Think about career paths. I mean, it's not hyperbole to say that some of your folks are involved in their life's work, right? In terms of what they are doing. And you're the employer trying to help enable that, trying to help make sure that that happens. So these people matter. Your work matters. And why does HR matter? Because HR is the linchpin connecting the two, right? HR is right there in the middle. They're the ones who are making sure that the organization's culture, the mission, the values, all that gets pushed out to the employees, that leaders are leading them in the way that they should, that lives that culture and values, that advances that mission. They're holding the employees accountable in the way that they should, in a supportive way. Similarly, it's relaying those things back up the chain. It's helping the organization understand what the employees need, what they're going to need to be successful, what the workforce needs, what it will need. Right? When HR is done well, that's really the value that it brings. It lives right there and it connects it. And so why is HR your friend? It helps keep you out of legal trouble, right? It certainly does that. It helps make sure folks get paid. It helps people feel good with all the engagement and retention things that we do. But really, HR is what helps turn your mission into a reality. Whatever you're doing, people are doing that, right? And HR is helping those people do that. And when it's done well, it helps make this thing real. I could talk all day long on this stuff, guys. Probably would. But I want to, evangelize a bit for HR because it's, I believe in it. I believe in what it can do. So whenever I can speak to folks about it, I like to. Now I want to give you some news you can use, right, about current workforce trends. And I should say, anywhere along on the discussion here, you got some questions, please just raise your hand. We'll have time at the end as well. What are some current workforce trends that we have out there? Well, what is normal in 2026? I haven't known what normal means for like 7 years at this point, guys. You're probably in the same boat, right? That kind of got obliterated a long time ago. What's normal right now is employers continue to adapt to this ever-changing workforce that we've had. We've always had to do that. Savvy employers always have had to do that. But especially these last few years, in the labor market that we've been in the economy that we've been in, employers really, to succeed, have had to adapt. And they have to recognize that employee expectations have changed. Employees are thinking about work differently, right? A lot of this has come on because so much more has been pushed towards remote work, right? And people have a lot more flexibility. They enjoyed that. They wanted to keep doing it. Employers, though, also saw that there's a lot of efficiencies that you can be realizing by using remote work. So that's one part of it. A lot of employees coming out of COVID thought about work-life balance, thought about how they wanted to be spending their time in their lives, so they bring that forward. And there's also a lot going on just in our labor market that has impacted that. Employees have a lot more choice, okay? I'm gonna give you a stat here in a second that will, I think, demonstrate that. But it has been a seller's market for labor for a number of years now. It's not like as white hot as it was a couple of years ago. You guys were there. We couldn't find anybody to do anything, right? So it's starting to loosen up a little bit, which I think is good for employees. I don't want anybody to be out of a job, don't get me wrong, but on a macro level, it's okay for us to have some more room for employers to be able to find that job. But they have to understand those expectations are changing. Employees have a lot more choice. They can get another job if they want. Boomers are moving out of the workforce, and as has been the case for like 70 some years, as they move through whatever they're moving through, they make an impact. And now as they move out of the workforce, there's a vacuum kind of left in terms of skills, experience. There's work, and there's not enough people. So you got kind of this double whammy of we don't have as many workers, we've got a lot more demand, and we're in kind of this on-demand world, right? Like people can expect things kind of at their fingertips, whether it's what you watch, what you order to eat, when you want to ride someplace. They start to put that to work, right? And by put that to work, I mean they connect that to work, and they start to expect the same in the workplace. So employee expectations have changed. Employers need to be, I think, savvy about that. They need to understand that. One piece I want to demonstrate back to that stat. This is the unemployment rate for the entire United States. This is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the folks who have been tracking this for 70 years or whatever. In December 2025, the U.S. employment rate was 4.4%. This is only over the course of the year since January, a 0.4% increase, but a slight decrease from November, which was at 4.6. So we're kind of in that, 4.5-ish range. And you're like, geez, that's increasing. True, it has increased if you go back and look, but in May of 2022, the unemployment rate hit a 50-year low. 50-year low, right? They haven't been tracking it for much longer than that. 2.5%, okay? Anybody who wanted a job could get a job. A lot of employers were using the mirror test for hiring. Anybody's familiar? Right? Hold a mirror up to their face. If it fogs up, you're hired. Okay. Not a good selection process. But that's the spot that we were in a lot of ways. So the labor market has changed. We have folks who really can, if they want to get a good job, they can. I hear a lot from employers about how nobody wants to work. I can't get people to stick around. I bet that's true. I don't see that as like a wholesale shift in the work ethic of America. I think what we're feeling is a lot of this. Like in 23, you're looking at people you were not looking at, right, in 2018. But that's the reality of it. Because everybody, all the good employees had jobs, frankly. So now we're trying to interview employees who are less reliable, who are available, who are out there in a job market where unemployment rate is next to zero. So I think that's a big part of it. And then there's these other demographics around if employees want another job, they can go get one pretty easily in a lot of ways. And it's this on-demand world. So job openings fell since the start of 2025, but then they rose a little bit. Labor market is uncertain with a lot of employers wondering what might happen with inflation, tariffs, and I'm not being political, I'm just talking about what we see in the research. Employers don't like uncertainty. If they're not sure what's going to happen, they're not going to hire a bunch of people. So there's a lot of those things in the labor market. Two things that I want to share with you in terms of being an employer here in Illinois that it would be helpful for you to know. One is around artificial intelligence. Effective January 1, the Illinois Human Rights Act was amended to prohibit the use of AI in hiring, screening, selecting, et cetera. So you can't just turn it over to ChatGPT and say, who's the best fit, right? Big reason for that being is, and we can talk all about AI and what it can do and what it can't do, right? But one reason is that it's a machine, it's a tool like anything else. It's going to start to reinforce what it thinks you want. And it can very easily start to build in implicit biases. So a good example that will also be cited is around, let's say, zip codes, okay? Certain ethnicities, races might be in certain areas, okay? You start selecting folks, you don't want AI to like just go not pick folks from this certain zip code, all right? Unless you've got a bias built in there, it's discriminating. That might be unknowing on your part. Maybe you start selecting people with certain characteristics, certain zip codes, addresses, names, things like that. And AI starts kicking you back more people it thinks you want, all right? And without you even knowing it, you've excluded whole classes of people. That's the real danger there, okay? So keep that in mind, and I have to put the caveat. I love workplaces, I love human resources. I'm not an attorney, right? If you're starting to learn about legal components, talk to counsel. I know a bunch of good attorneys here in town, we'll get you set up. Here's another one, pay transparency. This was effective last year. If an employer has 15 or more employees, they're gonna create a job posting, they have to post that starting salary and some description of benefits, okay? So keep that in mind. If you're putting it out there and you wanna hire somebody, you gotta have that. Now this is different than just like hanging a help wanted sign, or maybe you have something on your website that says, we're always looking for great people, put in your name and an application here. That's not what they're talking about. What it's really talking about is a specific job. For instance, HR Fit is actually hiring for a solutionist, as we call them right now. We posted that yesterday out there on Indeed and our website. It's got a hiring range, got a little bit of benefits. That's for a specific hire, a specific position. And so we have to post that range. That's according to state law. So if you're not posting that out there, that's something worth talking to your HR folks about. Yeah.
Is that the same for posting on your social media page or only on employment sites?
So that is a great question. It definitely should be on your employment site if you're out there. If you're posting on social media, what I would do is direct someone to that site, right? If you're only posting on social media, and that's the only place this is going out there, then to make sure you're compliant, I would post it there, right? Like wherever it's out there in your advertising. But if you have to kind of daisy chain it back, that's okay. And just make sure it's very clear, right, of where it is posted. So some pay transparency. Again, I'm still not an attorney, just like 3 minutes ago. So there's some things, some stuff that you can use, just recent changes that have gone. How should employers respond? Keep an eye on my time here. I learned one way to make people who maybe liked you, maybe not be as fond of you anymore, is keep them past the stop time. So we're not going past 1, don't worry about it. How should employers respond? Use an employee-first approach to try to enhance the experience as you can for applicants. So put those pay and benefits information in the posting, because you should anyway, right? But really try to give them a sense of what would it be like to work there. Stay engaged if you're trying to hire. Stay engaged with those folks. Don't, keep those applicants and those candidates warm. If the process is maybe taking a little bit longer than you thought, it's been a week, check back in, okay? Because if they're good, I'm telling you, you're not the only horse in the race, okay? So stay focused on them. Find out what's important to them. Same with your employees. What's important to those folks, okay? I'm a huge fan of, we get a lot of good information from exit interviews, right? But what's the problem? Once you get the info from the exit interview, they're gone. So I love stay interviews, as we'll call them. You sit down and you have a conversation with the employee, not just what are you working on? Okay, great, deadlines, blah, blah, blah. Having a substantive conversation, carve out 20 minutes. How's it going? How are you feeling about your work? You getting what you need from me? Getting what you need from the organization? What do we do well? What would you change? And you don't have to make any promises, but you're engaging, and there's value in just asking the question and just having the conversation. But then you also will learn what you might need to do to improve the whole organization, but also to make sure that employee stays there. So another way you can start to try to engage the employees. I would utilize technology, use AI as appropriate and as legal. So I'll give you an example. Job descriptions, right? You're like, gosh, I want to start writing a job description. Use ChatGPT, use Gemini, whatever it is, to start that. It's gonna, it'll give you a great template. But that should not be the end of it, okay? Then you should engage whoever has that professional skill. If you've got somebody in-house HR, if you are in-house HR, have those folks help. Call your friendly neighborhood HR consultant, whatever it is, to take that across the finish line, okay? Because you need to make sure that it's tailored towards your organization, towards what you actually want. Make sure that it's compliant for the state that you're in, because AI isn't necessarily going to really understand all the intricacies of operating wherever you're operating and what it is that you're doing. Okay. But I would use AI. We use AI, and I think to sit up here and pretend like it's not a thing is silly. We talk about it, and this is the way that the world is going, so we should get used to it. 38% of small businesses don't use digital tools for recruitment. There's a lot of stuff that they could do out there in terms of screening applicants. Again, not just handing it over to AI, but in terms of being able to sort, be able to identify the skills that they want, be able to communicate. There's ways you can leverage that. You can also use AI in personalized employee development and training programs, all right? Somebody's like, look, I'm a sales associate. I want to be a sales manager. Ask questions. Ask AI to craft me a professional development plan for someone who wants to go from a sales associate to a sales manager. And that is, they just did a ton of legwork for you, right? But then you need to talk with someone competent to take that across the finish line, all right? So ways that you can use and you can leverage that, I would. I heard someone say, AI will do 65% of the task for you right now, which is awesome, right? Same time, 65, depending on the grading scale, is an F or a D minus. Okay? You still have to do the rest of the work. Okay, so those are some of the things there about how employers should respond, things that I'd encourage you to think about as we sit right now. savvy employers who are gonna be successful are not gonna sit there and say, golly, kids today don't wanna work, you know, everybody's lazy. Even if that were true, I don't know how that's really a solution, right? That's not exactly a strategy. You should start thinking, all right, so for the folks who are the types of employees we wanna go after, how are we gonna do that, right? What are we gonna do to engage them? What's gonna set us apart? How are we gonna compete, you know? Is it our mission? Is it pay and benefits? What might it be that sets us apart that we can really try to attract and retain these people? So think about that. Think about how you can leverage these tools in a way that's gonna help you run more efficiently. Yes, sir.
I understand that Illinois has a paid time off rule now, maybe a year or so. How does that, how does one track it when the employees are part-time and salary?
How do they track in terms
Is
of
it
how do they word
the
that? Yeah.
employees turn in time or what?
Yeah, number of ways of doing it. The Paid Leave for All Workers Act, good times. So the rule is, and I'm going to way oversimplify this, it gets more tricky, but basically, if you employ anybody, it doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit, it doesn't matter how big you are, small you are, if you're employing someone, and whether you call them part-time or an intern or whatever, if money changes hands, right, and they're an employee, they earn 1 hour of paid leave for every 40 hours that they work, okay? It sounds so simple, and then you try to implement it, right, which is where all the fun came in. So a couple of ways with that part-time person that you're talking about, like if I heard you right, part-time exempt, part-time salary, right, and I'm muddying some waters there, but basically they're not paid by the hour, you're paying them like on a firm. So a couple of ways that you can do that, right, you could still have them track their time, right, and then you say this is how much you actually worked, all right, and so then that helps you figure out how much paid leave they should be provided. So maybe it flexes a little bit, right? This week they work 20 hours, next week 10, week after that 30. Okay, that would all start, just have them track it and then you can apply that. And then you'll know, okay, this is how much I should pay them. Then you still have to figure out the hourly rate. And so what you do there is, if you have a fixed rate, awesome, but you need to make sure that that's the true rate. So you basically be truing that up over the course of the quarter or the year or something like that, dividing the pay by the hours worked to figure out what that hourly rate is. So then when they take the time, I'm sorry, like you asked a great question and it gets so detailed.
I see why you left it off the slides.
Exactly. What I should have said is there's definitely a way to do that. You know, the other simpler way is you can front load it and you can say, this is what we expect that you will work, 20 hours, right? And you would say, you know, whatever we would normally give, 40 hours over the course of this year, so we're gonna give you 20 hours because you're a half-time employee, but you have to still need to track the hours because you have to true that up, right? Because what you don't want is the employee to come back and say, I'm supposed to get one for every 40 hours. You said you front-loaded this and gave me so many 20 hours to begin with, but actually I worked way more than that, and so I'm owed more than that, so it's complicated. But there's ways that we can do it. The important thing, though, is, I think, infrastructure. Like, you need to make sure that you've got a way to track these things and put this in place and defend whatever decisions you made, right, to that employee or whatever external authority is saying, why do you do this? So, long answer. That's a great question. Thank you for that.
Erik, are you ready for more questions?
Holy smokes, yes. Where'd that voice come from?
So I have a couple of comments. Thank you for being here, number one. I read today that they're training robots to fold towels and sheets in India. So will there be a day when the robot shows up at your office looking for a job and the entity that deals with him is another AI machine?
Yeah.
So that was just an observation. But the other thing I want to share with you over the tight labor market is that I volunteer downtown at the food ministry, and we get lots of volunteers there from Bradley and schools and community service, where they have to put in hours for community service. We also have people from across the street, which is the Work Release Center, and that's for prisoners, people who are in prison, who've earned the right to be out of prison and be going through this program, Work Release. I think it's 2 years or so they can do that. They volunteer with us, and they are some of the best volunteers we have. They're just so happy to be there. and how could they help? Now they're all getting jobs at Caterpillar's assembly line. I'm sharing that with you. Thank you.
That's great to hear. People who are wanting to work and able to do the work are getting work. That's good. And I couldn't tell you about when the robots are gonna take over, but maybe we'll all talk about our plan afterwards and make sure we're ready.
He's not done yet.
Hey Eric, what kind of, for employers, do you have certain packages for like small and nonprofit employers, for-profit employers, stuff like that, that you can help with, you customize?
Yeah, happy to. And I didn't ask Brent to pay or to ask that question. We'll send you a finder's fee. No, so yes, we do. We'll help folks out. And oftentimes what we'll do is we've got certain packages where it will be, if you want us to just take over all of your HR, then we're happy to do that. And oftentimes folks will. And really what they're getting there is that we've got the expertise kind of from the ground floor of just the basic HR generalist folks up to the executive level, right? Most employers don't need the high level folks, but they need them when they need them. And that's what we're able to do. We provide that consistency that people are always there providing the HR support that you need. And you're not worrying about whether it's being done right, on time, competently, et cetera. So yes, we will do that. And we also will do special projects for existing HR departments. And sometimes we might just do things at an hourly rate for our friend style. So that's it,
I have a question about the AI and hiring piece.
Yes.
I'm a professor at Bradley, and we often tell our students that there's already tools being used that are scanning resumes, right, for certain words and matching those words up with the job descriptions. Is that not supposed to be allowed by employers anymore either? Or is that already in place and they're going, yeah, that's fine?
Yeah, short answer is, I don't think there's like a prohibition on using that at all. It's kind of how it's being used. I mean, the safe play would be to not to in Illinois and just be like, I don't know. But really the devil will be in the details of how that AI is scanning those resumes, what the algorithm is looking for, what it's returning. If somebody were doing that, I would at least stress test that and make sure that is returning results like you should. Because again, it's partly like, is it really doing what it should be doing, right? And you're getting back. And then the other piece is, are we going to be able to defend whatever it's doing, right? Because AI said it was fine, isn't going to be a defense, you know? So that's my squishy answer for you, right? But I've got, let's see, we're coming up on 1 o'clock. If there was another question, I'd be happy to take it.